They say love is supposed to feel safe, comforting, grounding, like home. But what happens when love feels like walking through a storm barefoot, hoping the next step won't hurt as much as the last? This is the story of Jane, a woman who thought she found her forever in Matt, until she realized she was slowly forgetting who she was. If you've ever doubted your worth because of how someone made you feel, if you've ever confused inconsistency with passion or silence with safety, then stay. Because by the end of this story, you'll see the kind of love no one deserves to stay in. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the courage to choose yourself too. Jane met Matt on an unusually cold spring evening at a bookstore cafe, the kind of place people only visit in movies. She wasn't looking for love. In fact, she was only there to escape the noise of the world, tucked between pages and the scent of roasted coffee. But then he walked in, charming, warm-eyed, carrying the air of someone who knew how to be seen and how to make others feel seen. He noticed her almost instantly, told her he liked her taste in books. She smiled, shy, unsure. He was persistent but polite, a little too smooth maybe, but she brushed it off. It had been a while since anyone had made her feel interesting. That night, they spoke for hours about everything and nothing, and when he asked for her number, she gave it to him without hesitation. The days that followed were a whirlwind, calls that lasted until 2 a.m., good morning texts that made her cheeks flush, surprise flowers at work. Matt had a way of making her feel like she was the center of his universe, and Jane, who had spent so long being the background character in her own life, began to believe she was finally the lead in someone else's. But slowly, the warmth began to fade. It wasn't obvious at first. The good morning texts came later in the day. The phone calls shortened. The compliments were replaced by sarcastic jokes. And when Jane asked if everything was okay, Matt would sigh, tell her she was being too sensitive, that he was just busy, and didn't she trust him? Of course she did, or at least she wanted to. So she tried harder. She showed up more, cooked his favorite meals, let things slide, laughed at jokes that didn't feel funny, apologized first, even when she wasn't sure what she did wrong. She thought that maybe if she just loved him better, he would go back to being the man from the bookstore cafe. But he didn't. Instead, he started disappearing without explanation. Nights out with the boys that ended with unanswered calls, and Jane lying awake, staring at the ceiling, her chest tight with questions she was too afraid to ask. And when she did ask, he'd laugh. "You're too clingy, Jane. Relax. I need space." So she gave him space, and in that space, she lost herself. The friends she used to confide in stopped reaching out. "You're always making excuses for him," they'd say. Her family's gentle concerns became uncomfortable silences, and Jane began living in two worlds, one where she told herself she was fine, and the other where she cried quietly in the shower so he wouldn't see how broken she was becoming. Then came the night that changed everything. It was her birthday. She had reminded Matt 2 days earlier, even though she shouldn't have had to. She planned a small dinner, just the two of them, bought a new dress, lit candles, waited, and waited, and waited. By 11:45 p.m., Jane sat alone, the food cold, mascara smudged, her phone silent. No call, no message, nothing. He came by the next morning, smiling like nothing happened. "Something came up," he said. "Don't be dramatic." And in that moment, something inside her cracked, not loudly, not violently, but softly, like a whisper that said, "This isn't love." She didn't say much, just nodded, smiled, pretended it was okay, but she stopped calling, stopped chasing, stopped shrinking. Matt noticed the shift, started being sweet again, called more, sent flowers, said he missed them. But Jane had finally remembered who she was before him, the girl who loved books, the one who laughed loudly at silly things, the one who didn't walk on eggshells just to keep someone else comfortable. One evening, he showed up uninvited, flowers in hand, apology rehearsed. "I love you," he said. "I can change." She looked at him for a long time, and with a voice steadier than she thought she had, she replied, "I believe you think you love me, but love shouldn't feel like this. I've spent so much time trying to earn your affection, I forgot I never had to." She closed the door gently, and for the first time in a long time, the silence felt peaceful, not empty. The days after were not easy. There were moments of doubt, of missing the good days, of rereading old messages and wondering if maybe she had made a mistake. But healing rarely looks like strength. Sometimes it looks like crying on the kitchen floor. Sometimes it looks like blocking a number you once waited for. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself again and again, even when your heart still remembers. Jane didn't hate Matt. She just finally understood him. He loved in fragments. She needed wholeness. He offered fireworks. She needed steady light. And so she walked away. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she started loving herself more. If you're listening to this and any part of Jane's story feels familiar, if you've ever felt like you're begging someone to love you right, know this. The right love doesn't need convincing. It shows up, it stays consistent, it makes you feel safe. You're not asking for too much, you're just asking the wrong person. And if you're afraid to leave, remember, peace is better than 1,000 moments of temporary affection. You are not hard to love. You are just learning not to accept love that feels like pain dressed as passion. So here's your sign: to stop watering dead plants, to stop hoping inconsistent love will grow roots, to choose you. Because sometimes the most powerful love story you'll ever live is the one where you fall back in love with yourself. I remain yours truly, Amara. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Tell me in the comments, have you ever stayed in love that made you question your worth? You're not alone. Subscribe if you want more stories that speak to the heart. I'll be here, sharing pieces of truth, one love story at a time. Until next time, take care of your heart. You deserve to be loved genuinely.